Welcome to Salvation by Grace, a broadcast ministry of Grace Christian Assembly, a Sovereign Grace Fellowship in Smyrna, Tennessee. For more information, we invite you to visit our website at www.salvationbygrace.org. Now let's join our teacher, Jim McClarty.
Will not die, but will be changed. You rooting for that? Yeah, boy, me too. Look at the way he describes it. Verse 52. In a moment. And then less than a moment. In the twinkling of an eye. As quickly as light can glint off a person's eye, that's how quickly they'll change. The dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we, the ones that are still alive, shall be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. He just put a time on it. Not a date, but a time. He put a connection there. The same way that he said Christ is the first fruit of the resurrection, because Christ raised at the feast of first fruit. He now said at the last trump, which is last in a series, which is why I showed you earlier, last by Paul, at the last trump of a series, which because the book of Revelation hadn't been written yet, the only series of trumpets anybody knew about were the series of trumpets that were blown at the Feast of Trumpets, which ended at sundown with one long blast that was called the last trump. Paul used that exact phrase and said, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. Why? Verse 3, because this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So, when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, which gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. There's Paul's resurrection theology.
That means a whole lot more now. Yeah, I got it.
Does that help?
Got a question.
Yes.
Like you said, we have to be changed.
Because you can't stand in front of God without having the change. Absolutely.
That question went through my head. I think, well, if we can't do it for God, then what happens if you go to rapture? And it's still there.
It's right there. That's why you have to go there before you go to the rapture.
Tiffany has a same question.
Okay.
I'm just having a real hard concept of the fact that, when you die.
Tiffany's about to ask me, well, then if there's no soul sleep, you just said that people die and then they resurrect. Where are they in the meantime? Paul answered that question. He said, absent from the body is present with the Lord.
Why would you be here? Why would you be up there? Why would you be present with the Lord and then be resurrected?
I can answer that too. Because Paul said that the redemption that Jesus accomplished for us was not merely a spiritual, but a whole and complete body, soul, and spirit redemption. If he saved your spirit but admitted that he couldn't save your body and it laid in the grave corrupting, then all he really did was save you in a spiritual fashion, not in a whole and complete fashion. But the redemption of Christ is so complete that it is going to save you, according to Paul, body, soul, and spirit. So yes, to be dead, because Christ has died, you no longer have to worry about that whole Sheol, Abraham's bosom thing, which was an Israelitish thing. You go to be with the Lord. But the final completion of your being with the Lord is that he saves you body, soul, and spirit so that you are completely remember, you are predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. And the image of his Son is that he was resurrected from the grave, a perfect body that is at home eating fish on the shore of Galilee as it is standing in the throne room at the right hand of God. And that's what you're going to have, because that is the completion of his intention for what you would be, the whole redeemed being, as opposed to just saving you spiritually while your body corrupts in the grave.
When I die, my spirit goes, but then at the end, I'm going to take a trip down, pick up my body.
You are recovered, yeah. But by the way, I don't have the problem you're having, because I don't have a problem with our spirit rejoining our body for our full redemption as much as I have a problem with people who are alive suddenly instantaneously changing to incorruption and rising up into the air to be with the Lord. Both of those things are said to be true.
Left behind one time, not let it go away.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking that actually does solve that, though, because if he rapture, when the rapture occurs and he takes our bodies with us, then it would only make sense that he would take the bodies of those that went before us that were also Christians, because
The question is, this is all I want to put in front of you. This is the way I treat all of my theology, and you know this. It's the same thing when people argue with me about election or foreordination or predestination or any of the other stuff that people want to argue about. I put the Bible in front of them in a systematic fashion. I read it to them and say, there's all the evidence. Here's the stuff I got. Now fight with the Bible. All of that I've said so far tonight, did I say anything that Paul didn't say? Have I taken anything that wasn't in the Bible? Well, then there clearly is a resurrection coming, future, that Paul was still speaking of. A future resurrection past Christ, past the saints that got up in Jerusalem. There's yet another resurrection coming. The book of Revelation says that it's going to happen before the 1,000 years begin. And we are going to be instantaneously changed, according to Paul. Those who are alive will instantaneously put on incorruption and put on immortality. If that's true, then you can conceive of 1 Thessalonians when we get to it, of Jesus saying, and Paul saying the exact same thing, that when Christ appears to harpazo his people, that it says, we that we are alive and remain will be caught up in the air and meet him in the clouds of heaven, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. And by the way, when you put it in that context, after you read it out of 1 Corinthians, and then you look at 1 and 2 Thessalonians, which is where we're going next week, spiritualize that for me. Because you can't consistently. Paul took the time to build that argument through that whole chapter. He built that argument of resurrection and the importance of resurrection in order to be able to say that some people will instantaneously resurrect without death. I remember, by the way, being over in Franklin. Oh, this is my closing comment, but I remember being over in Franklin, and there was a guy preaching one Sunday. He was reading that out of 1 Corinthians, that this mortal will put on immortality and this corruptible will put on incorruption. And he said, that happens when you die. When you die, that's what happens. I said, I'm sitting there just shaking in the pew because you can't talk back to preachers in a church like that. And I'm saying, but the verse ahead of it says, we shall not all die, but we shall all be changed. So this isn't about death. And more importantly, tell me how it is that when you die, Tiffany, and we put your tired, sickly, dead body into the ground, that is somehow equatable to you putting on incorruption. There is no way to consistently spiritualize that language without saying the exact opposite of what Paul just said. Paul just said, we will not all die, but we will all be changed. And this mortal will put on immortality, and this corruptible will put on incorruptibility. It will happen in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, and then it's going to pick it up in the Thessalonian letter and say, when that happens, the harpazo takes place, and we are caught up, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. That's Paul's rapture teaching. Deal with it.
On behalf of everyone at Grace Christian Assembly, we thank you for listening to this week's Salvation by Grace message. Remember to visit us on the internet at www.salvationbygrace.org. And we invite you to join us next time when we gather around the Word and study the sovereign grace of God.